people have spent more time in jail for killing someone than we've done producing this show. I am one of your hosts, the still legally sound of mind and body, George Terran, alongside the man, the myth, the legend, the talent, the tired talent of Mr. Travis Croft. How are you, sir?
I'm fine and dandy despite being tired. I would like to point out, though, that people spending more time in prison for killing someone than we've done producing this show is generally considered a preferable outcome. I'd suggest, maybe the idea that they spent less time in prison.
Okay. I was off the fly. Don't pick at me. Don't judge my jokes, man.
There, I think.
You don't understand.
How have you been this week? You, I believe, are in new gainful employment, which is exciting.
Yes. This is officially week 2 of my new adult job, shall we say, and absolutely loving it. But my brain, I can, people always joke in the past that the fried brain, oh, what's that all about? Blah blah blah. You must have a fried brain for working in retail for 20 odd years. Blah 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 blah. My brain genuinely feels like it's fried at the moment, but in a good way. It's fried and stimulated, and the fatty juices are cooking nicely with the butter of a brand new job, and it tastes good in the kitchen.
This is what we call stretching the metaphor.
I'm going to dig my way out of this hole by saying we have got a good show for you, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we do.
No, dig up, stupid.
We'll dig a bigger hole.
We have a pretty good one this week. What have we got on this week?
We have got Travis's pick for Chain Movie of the Week, leading on from Best in Show, which had a nice turn by the wonderfully talented Jennifer Coolidge. We are following her to 2021 and Promising Young Woman, starring Carey Mulligan. Then we will talk about the new big Marvel movie that has released, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumanium, the first true introduction, because he was unofficially introduced to the MCU, care of Loki Season 1, of Kang. And particularly, this version of him identifies as Kang the Conqueror, the new big bad of the MCU for a while, by the looks of the release schedule, and coming up with Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, and all of that stuff that they've got planned for the next 5 years. And we are sticking on that Jonathan Majors train with his war movie Devotion, care of Netflix. We teased it a few weeks ago, and we finally got around to talking about it, because it, seems to make sense. Why not have one Jonathan Majors thing? We'll talk about another. And of course, we've got the next big thing. Binge, Burn, and Browse is back. Whew. Show and a half. Let's get to it, shall we? So, Travis, introduce us to your Chain Movie of the Week.
Promising Young Woman, as is noted, came out in, actually, it's noted from being from 2020, but I think it was released in various years. Released here in 2021, but I think maybe in other territories 2020 due to the COVID pandemic. A young woman traumatized by a tragic event in her past seeks out vengeance against those who crossed her path. Mm-hmm. This is written and directed by Emerald Fennell. This is her debut feature as a writer and director. You might know her best from playing Camilla Parker Bowles in The Crown.
Okay.
That is actually the only thing I'd ever seen her in. But she was also a writer on a TV show, Killing Eve, which I know was very popular. And as an actor, she'd appeared in various British productions, as she is, of course, British. Mm-hmm. As you noted, stars Carey Mulligan as Cassandra, or Cassie. Bo Burnham, probably better known as a stand-up comic than an actor, as Ryan. We've got some fairly familiar names in here as well. The great Clancy Brown, Kurgan himself, playing Cassie's dad Stanley. Jennifer Coolidge plays her mum Susan, and we have some familiar faces in Alison Brie, Adam Brody, Laverne Cox, And Christopher Mintz-Plasse, also known as McLovin.
Yep. Will he ever live that down?
I severely doubt it. And this is one of the films. You're right when you noted last week. I have seen this before. It's a bit of a cheat for me. It literally popped in my Facebook memories. I think yesterday, 2 years ago, is when I saw this film for the first time. And I remember saying afterwards to somebody who asked me what I thought of it, I feel like I need a bath after this film. It's certainly a film that stays with you. It stayed with me all the way through 2021 after I saw it, and I thought it should have done significantly better at the Oscars than it did. It did win one Oscar. I believe it won Best Original Screenplay for Emerald Fennell, which was, Best Original Screenplay. It was nominated for a few other awards, but it did not win them. But, Best Original Screenplay is the one you give it when you're like, it's probably the best film of the year, but we can't vote for this because it's a bit distasteful. Prize. We don't think we can give you Best Director. You use the F-bomb too much and the N-word, so we're going to give you this as your consolation prize. That's why I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to win Best Original Screenplay. Not just because it is the Best Original Screenplay of the year. It's because I'm not sure it's the kind of film they're going to feel comfortable giving Best Picture or Best Director.
It's not a musical. It's not directed by Spielberg. It's not a feel-good movie. It's
not a biopic. Nobody's disabled in it. And the butt plug scene, I just think it'll be too distasteful for this committee who vote for it. But anyway, I hope I'm wrong.
Yes,
this thoroughly deserves that award, as it's a wonderful film. Cassie, we meet early on in a bar, seemingly absolutely off her face drunk. Anna doesn't really even seem to know where she is. She's noticed by Adam Brody, playing Jerry, and some of his colleagues who look like they're at a bar for work drinks. They note that she doesn't seem to know where she is, and she's totally wasted and by herself. And the conversation's almost predatory. Jerry sort of volunteers to go over and talk to her, sort of putting himself in the role of the nice guy who's just going over to make sure she's okay. And that, she knows where she is and nothing's going to happen, and that she can get home. She seems to have lost her phone. So Jerry agrees to organize a cab/Uber to get her home. While they're in the process of going home, I'd be interested in your thoughts. Whether he decided to do it or he'd always meant to do it, he tells the cab driver instead to take him to his apartment rather than her place to drop her off, where he tries to ply her with more alcohol and then what can only be described as sexually assaults her, basically, under the belief that she is too drunk to do anything about it. The kicker here is, and I think I'm spoiling it too much because this is the first 15 minutes of the film, is she's not drunk at all. She knows exactly where she is, exactly what's going on. She's completely lucid. She's just plain drunk. And while he's removing her underwear and violating her, essentially, she looks up and she says to him, "What are you doing?" a few times in that drunk tone of voice. And says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And to the absolute look of terror on Jerry's face when he realizes exactly what's going on. And that's where our film opens. That's what she does for fun. She fucks with guys who are trying to take advantage and sexually assault women who are too drunk to know where they are or what's going on.
Now, you say for fun. Do you actually think it's for fun, or do you think
I'm being a bit facetious there. Is it for fun? It's what she does in her spare time. That's what she does with her life. And we sort of meet her parents later on who realize that what she's doing, maybe not entirely cognizant of what she's doing out on the weekends or out at clubs, but they wanted to have something. They know she's not doing anything particularly constructive with her life and would like her to settle down and actually start living a life that's, a little bit more normal or rewarding, or a life really, because she's not living at all. She's basically doing this as a way. It's almost a revenge pact, one-sided revenge pact she has for her friend Nina, who was raped and assaulted in medical school and has subsequently killed herself. And these actions will not directly target at the men or people who are responsible. This is sort of her way of getting back at the society and men in particular who she blames for killing her friend.
It's an interesting movie because it's got the like genre tag of thriller, which it's on Apple TV where I rented it, and yeah, it's got thriller elements. On IMDb, it's listed under crime, drama, and mystery. It's like, yeah, it's all got those elements, but it very much dances around all of those. And for me, looking at the whole movie, it's almost like a bastardized slasher movie from the point of view of the slasher. Because we are watching her go through and unilaterally just seek revenge or decimation of someone. She doesn't particularly care who. She has got her own set of rules, and we are slowly over the course of the story, as more information is revealed as to her reasons why, we are become more and more empathetic to her. It's a weird one because none of the guys are sympathetic in any way, shape, or form. So it's not the kind of movie where it's a gender swap of Michael Myers to
No.
anything like that. We don't feel, we don't want the people that are being hunted to win. We don't want that. Whereas, it's really hard to kind of work out what this movie actually is beyond a narrative, a very compelling, very interesting, very thought-provoking narrative story of someone who spends her time torturing herself just as much as she does the men that she lists in her little book.
You've nailed it there. I think people went into this film expecting that kind of a revenge film, a female rape revenge film, which is we've seen. It's pretty common sort of tropey sort of thing. Tarantino kind of did it a little bit with Kill Bill. Mm-hmm. It was a famous genre, I think, in the older 70s and stuff like that. But and it even winks at the audience after that first encounter with Adam Brody's Jerry. When she's walking, she does what essentially would be, in other terms, the walk of shame.
Yeah.
And she's got a donut or a burger or something.
A hot dog or something, yeah.
Hot dog is dripping ketchup or jam or something down her wrist and onto her leg. And from a distance, you're like, is she covered in blood? Had she killed him?
Yeah.
But then, when you get closer in and you realize it's just food, that's Emerald Fennell knows exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly what we expect her character to do. And she's not going to give us that. She's going to zig when we think she's going to zag.
Yeah.
Everything in this film is completely deliberate. The music of the initial opening credits, I believe, is a song called Boys. It's a video of men in khakis, or if I'm American, I'd say khakis.
Yeah,
work pants thrusting and stuff. The opening scene of Cassie on the couch at the nightclub is in the Jesus Christ pose, and that Jesus or saintly imagery, it recurs throughout the film. It's there quite regularly. There's a scene at the coffee shop she works in where her head is circled by a painting or something behind her. It makes it look like it's a halo.
Yeah.
When we get to the finale, which I'm not going to spoil for people.
No.
Again, we see her enter that cross-like pose. So all of that's deliberate. But I think to back onto your point about that people expecting a sort of a revenge drama and not really quite getting that is, I guess I interpret this as Emerald Fennell sort of going, this is a female revenge drama, But unlike, the typical female revenge drama, like a Kill Bill, for example, where it's almost through the male gaze. We expect a wronged woman to act like we would expect a wronged man to act. Like, the mob killed his wife. This is one citizen pushed too far.
It doesn't celebrate it.
She doesn't. Women deal with these things differently, I think, is what she's saying. And her way of actually gaining revenge is less about going out and killing people like, a Charles Bronson film might be. This is more about maybe humiliating people or, forcing people to stop and think about what they have done or putting them in similar situations, which does happen to one character in the film who she tortures almost in that way.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely brilliant the way it does that. It's approaching it from a completely different angle. In that, though, the one thing I found myself thinking the first time I saw it is, my goodness, she's putting herself at incredible risk in these situations.
Yeah.
That she is staring down these men, but just hoping like hell that, like, by shocking him, she's not ending up in the result. Those situations aren't ending violently, which is the one thing it almost came across as a little bit unrealistic to me the first time I saw it. Was, she is still physically smaller than these people, and let's face it, men have a reputation for a very good reason for actually ending those situations violently far more often than they should. As in, they never should. But, you find yourself one-on-one with someone and you humiliate them and potentially put their career at risk and that kind of thing. I would not be surprised to see someone react violently in that situation, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of justified that in my head, because not only is she just putting herself out there into these dangerous scenarios, but she is going even further, and she is going back to their house every time. And you're going into the damn lion's den. And I think it's because of that brings in that point of the two big key guys that we see her do this to, of Adam Brody and Christopher Mintz-Plasse. They freak out and they kind of recoil and they become scared babies. Scared baby boys who have been caught with their pants down, fiddling with themselves back at the cinema or whatever. They are absolutely horrified and ashamed, not because of what they're doing, but because of what might happen after the fact. And that is a very important thing. It's like, none of them show any goddamn remorse of what they fucking done. It's all, what are you going to do? Are you going to tell my blah, 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 blah? It's nothing about the moment. And I think it's the fact that she flips on a dime in terrifying manner from this performance of a complete out of her mind drunk young woman to being almost matronly. And you kind of, the way that she just surgically just breaks them down, it's sort of like there's just too much mental pain that the guy is trying to process of, she tricked me, she willingly came here, what the fuck is this woman going to do? That it kind of justifies that. Really? Would she, none of these guys would hit her or anything like that? It's like, no, I think it's that ultimate point of someone stabbing you, your instant recourse is to pull away. And that's what they are doing in a incredibly emotional reaction.
I'd also have to call out the way those roles were cast. This is something we would normally talk about here of the casting, although I think we did a little bit last week with Best in Show. But these roles, as I think I was trying to make earlier, the point I was probably making very badly, as I usually do, is everything about this film is incredibly deliberate. We talked about the music. That is there throughout the film. Before the finale, in the start of the third act, really, the finale of the film, which is, I'll be interested to hear it talk to you about that in a bit. But we see an orchestral version of Toxic by Britney Spears. So, there's another scene in a pharmacy where as a song
Paris
playing,
Hilton.
Paris Hilton song, but I can't remember.
We don't want to utter her name anymore. It'll make her appear.
No, not House of Wax. No, Naughty and the Naughty.
That's our chain movie of the week.
Ooh, doesn't say, but the recasting of his roles is completely deliberate. Adam Brody, I believe, is best known for his role in the OC, which was he was a bit of a heartthrob, I think, which is we thought it was a sitcom, but apparently it was a soft scripted reality sitcom. I don't really even know. He was also in The New Girl with Zooey Deschanel. So
he was?
I think he was.
No, that was the other guy. That was Al's friend.
I could be wrong, but I thought he did appear in that at least
Adam
once.
Brody is one of the old when they Shazam up in Shazam, one of the kids.
Oh, that's right. He's in Shazam, but I think he was in an episode of New Girl. One. My bad. I was looking through his thing, going, "Why do I know who he is?" And I think the same with Krista Mintz-Plasse. He is McLovin, which kind of familiar, funny, approachable, nice guys from TV. These are the guys who she has cast deliberately in these roles as the kind of guys who you wouldn't expect to be the kind of pricks who take blind drunk girls home and basically assault them. And I think that's the deliberate part. Is she could have cast skeezy looking dudes with mullets, like Bob from Twin Peaks or something. But that's a deep cut.
That's a good cut though.
Like she didn't. She cast nice, friendly, familiar looking guys who we've seen on nice shows or funny shows before as the kind of
non-threatening guys.
Non-threatening is a good way of putting it. And these are the kind of guys who are every bit as capable of this. And I think there's also that scene with Krista Mintz-Plasse. He keeps saying, "But I'm a nice guy. But I'm a nice guy." And there's something about guys who say they're nice guys. If you have to tell people you're not, right? Like,
it's like, who are you trying to convince here?
Yeah, it's not genuinely nice people. Generally, don't have to go around telling people that. So I enjoyed that very much. I thought that was very clever. Yeah, we haven't really talked about the co-star here, and that is Bo Burnham and his role in this. So Bo meets her. Cassie works at a coffee shop, and Bo meets her at the coffee shop, and it turns out they went to medical school together at some point in the past. And he, noticing her at the coffee shop, says, "Why are you working here?" Which comes across as very rude. And in one of the more entertaining scenes in the film, he says, "Actually, you know what? Look, I'm sorry. It was very rude of me. You can spit in my coffee if you want." And she does. And he drinks it. Which apparently he really did. And she did drink it. But that is a commitment to method there. Don't
they realize it was COVID?
Pre-COVID, I hope. And it turns out he's interested in Cassie and he's keen to date. And they do actually end up dating, and they have a very nice meet cute, and the scene in the pharmacy between the two of them is beautifully shot. What did you make of the color palette in this film? I found it very interesting for a film about such a dark topic.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. It's almost like candy cane colors everywhere. The coffee shop, and then Cassie's parents' house. The way that it's dressed, almost like a doll's house, with the sort of like ridiculously ostentatious designs on everything, and the pink carpet and things like that. And then suddenly, when she's out at night, the blacks of the night and of the clubs and everything just are really black, and it's lit by neon, and
they feel threatening though, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of essence of that kind of candy cane and lollipops kind of color palette during the day, when Cassie gets in the zone, when she is kind of out on the hunt, it's laser focused. and everything else just blurs away, but that candy cane just can't quite fade away. It almost kind of feel like, because they use it less and less as her relationship with Bo develops, and she starts to kind of start living again rather than being on pause and stuck in the past. It fades off, so it's almost like those colors are a symbolism of hope. The hope is just getting darker and darker and fading away, and then the last part of the last third of the movie, there's not really that bright colors or anything. It's very realistically shot. It still looks great and it's still fitting with the rest of the movie, but it's in woodland area, and there aren't those kind of manufactured color palettes and lights and things like that. It's natural lighting. They're in nature, in the real world, and this is just how it is.
I think we should move on to the finale. Essentially,
Yes.
The film is sort of split into 3 acts, as most films are. We meet her. We see her quest in life to expose men.
Mm-hmm.
We meet Bo. There is the Bo represents the promise of a normal life to her. But her previous, actions and obsession comes back into her life through Alison Brie's character, Madison, who is someone she went to school with. We won't go into too much detail about what she does to Madison, but it's kind of satisfying since Madison's kind of a cunt. And she's given a choice, really, at one point. Madison gives her a phone. And she says, there's a video on this phone of what happened to your friend. And that is kind of her stay or should she go moment. And you put the spoilers thingy up there because I think it's where I don't want to spoil it for anybody. So you got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're out. Spoilers. We're going. It's 2 years old. She decides to watch the video. And that is really the make or break moment because on that video, she discovers that when her friend Nina was raped at medical school, her boyfriend Ryan was in the room.
Yes,
when it happened, and he can be heard making comment about what was going on the video, and it just horrifies her.
Yeah.
What did you? So, I found the scene between her and Ryan fascinating when she confronts him with what she's found. But I guess what I'm most interested in is what did you make of her finale at the bachelor's party?
Well, first off, as soon as Ryan came onto the scene, I knew what was going to happen. It was incredibly obvious because this is a movie where there are no nice guys, except for Clancy Brown.
Yeah,
the only nice guy.
Maybe the lawyer.
He's the redeemed character, and he's a very interesting. You talk about the phone call being the finale. Will she? Won't she give up the past life or not? The scene with a great little performance by Alfred Molina. Let's just not mention that.
Uncredited, by the way.
Yeah. It is a great scene because she has organized for some guy to do something to him. We're not told what, but it ain't gonna be good, whatever it is. And the scene between her and the lawyer, how she reacts when she sees him, and he says, they say that I had a mental breakdown. Is it like he calls it a revelation, and how he wants to be hurt. He literally says, I want you to hurt me because of what I've done. That is the first turning point, and it is the red herring of the turning point, because you suddenly think, okay, yes, someone who was intrinsically involved in such a heinous cover-up shows remorse. This is the first time we've seen a man in this movie show genuine remorse for the action that they did, or through inaction did not stop. Maybe Ryan is the reward for her giving up. But no, that again, as you said before, everything is by design in this movie. And then that tape plays and you don't see it. perfectly tasteful, correct way of doing that, but you hear it, and it's the
What
laughter.
for one, so you're making an excellent point there. That I also just like to sort of juxtapose that scene with Alfred Molina prostrating himself on the floor on his knees. Again, religious imagery there of her with the arm around him, and almost like Mary Magdalene. And he says, "Please forgive me, please forgive me." And she says, "I forgive you."
Yeah.
I watched this thing I picked up watching it a second time was you juxtapose that with the reaction of Ryan upon finding out that his involvement in the assault was like, no, you have to forgive me. You must forgive me. I need you to forgive me. It wasn't you sort of and you juxtapose the
very
two.
different. Yeah.
She was like he was chastened. I'm not using the right word, but he acknowledged that he was what he had done was wrong, and he was ready to sort of admit it and throw himself upon her mercy, so to speak. Whereas Ryan was almost aggressive in that thing. No, you must forgive me. I love you. You have to forgive me. And that was kind of revealing of the characters of the two men there. And that almost confirmed Cassie's opinion of, the men in her life for the most part. Not, he was not worthy of her forgiveness, whereas Alfred Molina's character perhaps was. But she eventually basically blackmails Ryan with releasing the video of him being involved or being at least present at a rape, and to get the address of the bachelor party of the perpetrator of the rape.
Ow.
And I think what happens after that is potentially, if not the most disturbing thing I've seen in a mainstream Hollywood film that I can remember. I mean, it's up there with something like Seven, in the scene with the knife in the prostitute scene, and most of what happens in Seven. Anyway, it's up there with most of what happens in Seven, which is a very disturbing film.
Yeah.
What did you make of that scene?
So much of it I loved, but at the same time, it's also kind of the part that I have the hardest analyzing as well, because it fits and doesn't fit at the same time. The narrative kind of forces you to make decisions to justify why things happen. For example, it's like the scheduled message that gets sent out, and the fact that she sent a letter to the lawyer saying, in case of my disappearance, things like that. She knew that there was a chance that she was not going to come out of that scene alive. And so it's like, okay, why did she was, because it wasn't the fact that it was about the rape that the walls come tumbling down on the guys. The walls come tumbling down because of a new incident. And so it's like, okay, wait, she needed something really bad to happen in order for her revenge to be exacted.
You're saying you almost feel like she went into that expecting to be killed or almost hoping for that result?
I think she was hoping to. I think that there was, following on from the final Cassie Ryan scene where she just walks off and she's got a little bit almost like a spring in her step the way she leaves and exits the room. I think that was a complete lie. And we saw, the only other time that we saw her completely break with reality, essentially, was in the scene with where she stops at the traffic lights and she just goes postal on the guy's truck, and then she kind of snaps to it and goes, "Oh, what the fuck?" I think that the revelation of Ryan broke her in such a way that she just kind of went, "Yep, I tried to be redeemed myself. I cannot. This needs to end. I know that it's not healthy for those around me for me to keep doing this, but I legitimately cannot stop. Someone has to stop me. and the only way is for this result.
That's a very interesting interpretation I hadn't considered. I saw it differently. The first time I saw it, I did not believe that she went into that intending to die or even expecting to die. And I felt the conclusion of the film at the wedding with the police rocking up and the scheduled messages, as you note, I thought that was very convenient and it felt tacked on. And when you read the trivia, you realize that was not the intended original ending by Emerald Fennell. She originally intended to end at the death of Cassie at the bachelor party and walk away from there. When the studio, perhaps duplicitously, because they're like, would someone as fastidious and organized as Cassie really not have any kind of contingency plan? And you go, she would have a contingency plan.
There's a fair point.
Stupid. So I think the studio also thought, well, it's a fucking downer of an ending. Can we have it's a pretty ugly ending for the film. I mean, it's a brilliantly shot and acted and put together scene. It's horrible, but it needs to be seen. But at the same time, it really fucks with you. And to have a little bit of a hope spot, to use a wrestling term, after that, it was nice. It was, well, nice is a strong word. It left you feeling a little bit less shitty at the Bat Society than if we just left it at Cassie's dead and fuck it, But at the same time, even while I can see now, there are parts I missed the first time around. So when Cassie arrives at the lodge or wherever it is, she takes her number plates off her car and throws them into the woods. And you sort of go, that strikes me as the actions of a girl who's half expecting not to come back from where she's going. So it made a little bit more sense. It was a contingency plan, but I'm not entirely sure it really escapes the tacked on feeling. If for no other reason than 4 cop cars show up at a guy's wedding to arrest him for rape, which I would like to believe that's what the police would do. But, reality in the world and life says
it felt a little too Hollywood. That
it felt a little bit Perry Mason, like like it's what happens on TV and in movies. The police, oh my God, there's been a rape. We better go arrest the guy. I'm like, I really wish we lived in that world, but we don't. So, the guy's rich and stuff. So, they'd probably be a lot more careful about how they did it. But getting him arrested at the wedding and his friend like bolting to try get away was mildly satisfying, to say the least. I think it's not as bad as the first time. I might have been a little bit critical the first time around about how tacked on it felt, but it's one of the more memorable endings for a film that I can remember. The whole third act. Yeah.
I'd say for me, I would have definitely preferred it if it had ended at the lodge, and it was. I think that it would have spoken more to her intelligence as well if she had the video of the rape sequence. If she had a scheduled message drop to say that timed with her going to there and being attacked, or maybe even not even, so like if she maybe hoped that she was going to survive, just the next morning, all the boys are drunk downstairs, and he's strapped to the bed with Nancy carved on his chest. She's just gone. That explains the license plates going, so no one can pin her there. But she has sent it off as a scheduled thing. So, like, this guy here, I am a stripper at this, and I do not feel safe. Something like that to get the police there. That would have been enough, and we wouldn't even have needed to see the arrest or anything like that. It would have been kind of like what they did with the hard cut of night to daylight coming through the room, which looked awesome, by the way. And with that, it's just like 1, 2, 3, and then you hear police siren, and then it cuts. Done.
I'm not sure about that, but I think you're going to have one or the other. I think either you walk we close the film with Cassie lying dead on the bed, or we have something that happens afterwards. But I was too critical the first time. I think it does make sense that she had a plan. I just wish that plan had been executed in a little bit more of a realistic, non-Hollywood way. Like 6 weeks later, one of them's at work, and a police officer very politely comes in and asks him, could he come down to the station for a chat, rather than busting in and arresting him at a wedding. Who knows? But overall, what did you make of this film as a package? Like, it's an interesting film in terms of ratings. Like, if you have a look at IMDb, it has a 7.5 from the audience, and a 73 Metascore, which I think on both counts for me is a little low. But what about you?
I think I understand those ratings, because much like a couple of the movies that we've watched most recently with Tar and recommending it to people, it's not an easy watch. It's almost a good companion piece if you want to see just the dark side of life. Kind of a good companion piece for Requiem for a Dream, or maybe even Pi, where it's not as sexualized, drug-addled, it's infectious of your mind and your soul and ripping you apart. Just that kind of cerebral devastation that it very clearly wants to elicit from you. I think that anyone who goes in there saying, I didn't like the acting, they're blind. Anyone who says that they didn't like the set design or the production value or anything about this, every single element is purposefully designed, almost like a Swiss watch. Everything feeds nicely into each other, informs on the characters, informs on the scenarios. We are told so much exposition through silence and through just a look. And that is fantastic narrative storytelling. But at the same time, you have to pay attention, which for mass people, which is what those IMDb ratings often end up getting twisted by, they're going to look at this and go, I kind of wanted a revenge movie. I didn't get that. I mean, it was good, but 7.
That's a fair point. I think this is more accessible than something like Requiem for a Dream. I can see your point there, but like that film's like a fucking nightmare and go to woe. Like this film, I think Emerald Fennell very nicely lightens it up at various points. There are those rom-com elements which are in there to almost lull you into a false sense of security when you don't notice the left hook coming at you of the final act, and when she just beats you around the head. But I not only, but in a way, I remember when Requiem for a Dream came out, a film reviewer I respected, said they should show this film to every 14-year-old in the country who thinks doing drugs is cool, who saw Trainspotting and thought being, doing heroin was cool. Yeah, no. And see how many of those 14-year-olds still want to do heroin after watching Requiem for a Dream. And I'm like, I think he has a point. And at the same time, I think that film, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I think that film that holds up. But if you think doing drugs is cool, check out that. But I think they should take 16-year-old boys aside and show them this film, and just sort of see if any impact that might have on their attitudes towards women, and being a nice guy, and all of them, not just the aggressive sort of sexually active guys at 16, but also those sort of geek, the incel community as well can be quite horrible. So I think it's more than a film that you should see. It's a film you must see, and if you have teenage boys or young boys who are getting into that age group, I think it's an important film to sit down and watch. And geez, I mean, it would be a hard film to sit down and watch together with your parents, but fuck, I think it might be well worth your time. I don't know what the rating on it is. I think it was MA15.
think it's 15.
Sorry, rated R in the US. I don't know what the fuck that is in Australia.
I think over here it was a 15 plus.
It made 15 plus in Australia. Yeah. So for your kids is around about the 15, 16-year-old age, it might be something to sit down and watch and have a conversation about. I think it's a conversation starter of a film.
Absolutely agree.
And an important film. And I think Emerald Fennell has absolutely knocked it out of the park for her debut film. And I'm a bit disappointed, quite frankly, that she has nothing on her upcoming schedule in terms of writing or directing. I hope she's working on something because it's an incredibly impressive debut.
I'm sure they'll offer her the next Captain Marvel movie or something.
Well, a Marvel film, yeah. Please don't.
What did I just do there? But was that a good segue into our next topic?
Well, we're going to talk about the direct fucking opposite of this film, yes. Next. FYI, the Marvels has been pushed back to November. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, I did notice. I did spot that.
Being directed by Nia DaCosta, not Emerald Fennell, unfortunately.
No.
But we're going to talk about Ant-Man 3.
Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium. Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne, along with Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, explore the quantum realm, where they interact with strange creatures and embark on a adventure that goes beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. That is a terrible explanation.
It really
That's
is.
what's in IMDb, and that's piss poor. Sorry.
Wow. Basically, they are sucked into the quantum realm, a different part of the quantum realm we've never seen before. There they bump into all sorts of crazy, wacky characters, including Kang, and fun and hijinks ensue.
Yep, and MODOK. Don't forget MODOK. And I remember the first thing that came into my mind when watching this. There was actually an article with the director Peyton Reed and the writer, whose name is
Loveness?
Yes, Jeff Loveness. He said, they say that this was their opportunity of doing Dune. And it's like, I kind of get some of that. And they're not only ripping off a lot of Dune stuff, but also a lot of John Carpenter from Mars stuff. For example, the sequence where they drink the goo so that suddenly they can understand each other.
I thought that was quite original, actually.
That was literally, they literally used that in John Carter and Mars.
Oh, I don't really remember that very well. It's been a long time since I saw it.
Yeah, he's cool.
I think you mentioned John Carter and Dune. I got a lot of Star Wars. Michelle and I were quite thinking a real Star Warsy kind of vibe from this film as well.
Yeah, definitely, and especially the idea of splitting off and having kind of story A and story B as they're going through.
But also like the cantina and the wacky characters. It felt like one of the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah, it definitely had that kind of feel to it, didn't it?
What have you thought about the other two Ant-Man films?
Considering the production turmoil that the first Ant-Man had, what with Edgar Wright developing it for a long time with Joe Cornish and then exiting and then Peyton Reed coming in and picking it up, I think they did a surprisingly good job. I think there was a lot of good solid groundwork laid in there, and they did nicely. The second one, Ant-Man and the Wasp, I thought it was fine. They kept it going in the right direction, and it came in a time when it felt more like a nice little standalone superhero movie, not tied to anything else. So it just told its story and left. And I really appreciated it for that, considering all the other stuff that was coming out, where it's like previously on Marvel's Cinematic Universe. It was so important to be caught up with all of that stuff. Now we come to Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumanium, which Kevin Feige and everyone at Marvel Executives wants you to know this is the linchpin that is going to tie everything that we've had at the last phase of the MCU that's felt so disjointed. It's going to start tying it all together. This is the real starting point. So okay. And I kind of get that with the inclusion of Kang, and especially the post-credits, the two post-credit sequences. It's like, they are really wanting this to tie it all together, to explain a lot. and it looks like it's going to explain a lot of what happens in Loki season 2 as well. And I get it. They're setting up a new bad guy. They're setting up Kang. And they're following on from Thanos. So it's like, you can't just do Thanos again with a new skin. No one wants that. No one would like that. It would not work. So they're doing their best to try and set up Kang as a genuine, legitimate threat to the Avengers in a very different, unusual, not seen before manner, which I appreciate. And they've done a lot better job of spinning those plates and setting those plates up in this movie than they did with Avengers Age of Ultron, where they kind of set up all the Infinity Stones and they where they really brought in the Infinity Stone. Sorry, they set up kind of the first note of Ragnarok and things like that. It felt very clunky and falling all over the place. This generally keeps the story going in the right direction, but I didn't really care.
I think this film, on reflection, when I walk out of a cinema, was like, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
But on reflection, I think this film is okay is maybe a massive over compliment to it, if that's the right word. I think it was, honestly, on reflection, this film is a pile of shit. This is a terrible film. Interestingly, the critics hate it.
Yep.
The audience doesn't really like it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's got a 6.6, which is, you know,
it's queued with the Eternals, I think, right?
I don't know what the Eternals, what their score is, but it's lower than the last couple. They've gone from 7.5 to 7 to 6.6. Mm-hmm. And I just like to call out and go, the less Edgar Wright, the further we get away from Edgar Wright, the worse these films get. Peyton Reed is a fucking hack, and he was lucky he landed the director's seat after they let Edgar Wright go. They should be begging him to come back. The Eternals has a 6.3, by the way. There's no one talking about them in phase 5. We're not talking about whatever those characters were called are doing. You know, the giant robot in space. Nobody's mentioned the giant robot in space. You know, like I guess that just didn't happen.
Nope.
I have numerous problems with this in the sense that it's so cliche. We've seen it done so many times before. Mm-hmm. Parts of it are so stupid now, and we like you know, in Wakanda Forever, I forget the character's name. Ironheart was able to build a fucking Iron Man suit in a garage on the weekends. You know, because that's something that can
Iron
happen.
Man made his first one in a cave with scraps, Travis.
He wasn't a teenager either, like at school, and doing it in a warehouse on her free time. You know, I'm all good to do Ironheart in a completely different direction from what Iron Man was, but come on now. Some kid in their fucking dorm room can build an Iron Man suit? No. And so now apparently they've recast Cassie Lang, the new actor in this one, Catherine Newton, who's fine, I guess, except the fact I think she's in her mid-20s. It doesn't look much like a teenager. I'm trying to see how old she is. 97, so she is 26 years old. And she can just build a fucking machine to map the quantum realm in her garage on the weekend, you know, like, what?
Yeah.
If we ignore that, which is pretty easy because they just sort of yada, yada, yada that, they're sucked into a part of a quantum realm we've never talked about before. In the previous films, it was just this vague, empty expanse. And you know, now it's a complete world of civilizations and people. And
it's because if we had panned slightly to the left or right in the previous times we've been to the quantum realm, it would have said buffering.
Right, I was looking at the wrong part.
Yeah.
And we just sort of have the same story we always get with Marvel, you know, CGI armies fighting each other, and you know, a fist fight.
The old acquaintance who's definitely going to help. No, they're not.
And Bill Murray's cameo in this was laughably awful. Like, I mean, for starters, in case you didn't know, Bill Murray's been Me Too'd. You know, I don't know if it happened in this film or another film, but do Google the allegations about Bill Murray. You know, the guy's got some I know like some people get sick of his shit, but like, there's some fairly legitimate things that people have said about him being kind of a shitty person to work with, not just your normal, Ghostbusters. He won't return, people's Harold Ramis's calls, like literally grabbing women and stuff like that. So, I find that once that's in my head, it's very difficult for me to go.
Yeah.
But if we ignore that for a second, it was completely pointless.
Yep.
He's in it for 10 minutes. You're like, he was just like he turned up, like I said, can I be in the movie, please? I'm here. And like, oh, Bill Murray's here. We'll write a part for him on the spot. Like, it was completely pointless.
Yep.
And it didn't need to happen. And it was distracting in a way, right? Like,
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, it's Bill Murray.
That's it. It wasn't a character. It was Bill Murray. Because he was leching on Janet Van Dyne, and he was just being sardonic, and he was being Bill Murray. It's like, okay, yep. A couple of years ago, he became a popular thing because he would randomly just turn up at people's weddings and stuff, and just kind of photobomb weddings and stuff. It's like that's kind of what he did in this movie.
It really was. And of course, obviously, he telegraphed the punch, like you said. We've seen it a million times. It was almost a Lando Calrissian, moment of like, he's going to help us. No, he's not. I did not like this film at all. The only redeeming quality this film has is, well, three things. One, it has a shorter runtime than most films these days.
Yeah.
It's over 2 hours, which you probably still got to cut a little out of, but it's fine. Paul Rudd is still charming and easy to watch and fun to watch, and I still enjoy Paul Rudd, like in the the scenes of all the different Paul Rudd's characters. Him dressed in the Baskin Robbins outfit, going, "I don't even know why I'm here," is actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
And the third thing, and this I think is the major redeeming characteristic of this film, is Jonathan Majors is a fucking movie star.
Yep.
I haven't seen him in a lot before this week. I think I saw him in Lovecraft Country, and I didn't finish that because it got silly. But obviously in Loki, but he is a fucking big time movie star, big time movie star, and he is the only thing holding any hope for me in Phase 5 for Marvel, because everything they've done of like, I can't remember. No Way Home was the last good thing they did, and that's a year now, and everything since has been absolute dross. I'm sorry, No Way might have been a little bit more soft on Wakanda Forever. It was okay, but okay is about as good as I can go. Love and Thunder was bad. Eternals was bad. This is bad.
Yep. Black Widow was bad.
So, but he is fucking big time. He has genuine menace about him in this film.
Yeah.
And I don't even really understand what the fuck's going on with this character right now. Like, I don't know what his motivation is. I don't understand exactly what Kang is, or why he wants to kill people, or why, what's going to happen. You mentioned the post-credit scene, the first one with the arena full of Kangs.
Spoilers.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Well, you had a week. There are 2 post-credit scenes. That's just one of them.
Yeah.
It's did you enjoy Jonathan Majors' performance in addition to him being an interesting villain?
I think Jonathan Majors, I have loved pretty much everything that I've seen him in so far. I am definitely a fan of the guy. I think he's doing really well. I think the man who remains from Loki is completely different in presentation. Key thing, presentation to Kang the Conqueror in this, where he self-identifies as Kang the Conqueror, and then we get all the different variants in the Colosseum, the Colosseum of Kang. There's going to be so many bad jokes about that kind of stuff. He has got his work cut out for him if he is going to be given genuine scope to show variations of this character. But the thing that really just sells me on it is he was so brilliant at being able to just use silence, and cavalier attitude where Ant-Man and Cassie are both in their cells, and he's just like, and Ant-Man says, "Oh, I'm an Avenger." He says, "Avenger? Have I killed you before?"
You're the one with the hammer.
Yeah, it's like, I barely remember them. I've killed too many of them. It doesn't matter anymore. And he says something of the like. It's like they all blur together. He does it so well. And then when he's just having a drag down knockout fight with Ant-Man, he's a fucking scary guy. he's just.
I found that very annoying, actually. Like, can we have something other than like? I know I complain about the sky beams, but I think there might have been a sky beam in this.
There was
a fist fight. Like the only way they could have been more cliche, it could have been if it was a sword fight. Could you get somebody who can choreograph a fight, Marvel?
Yes, please.
Maybe the guy from John Wick. Like, I didn't like John Wick, the last John Wick film, but like, fuck, they can choreograph the shit out of a fight. Yeah. Maybe the guy who did Bullet Train. Those fights were fun. But I found out like, oh, it's a fist fight. But you're right, he was brutal in that fight. Absolutely brutal. Probably more brutal than we've seen a character be since Thanos. And yeah, I mean, that.
Even then, there was not particularly a point with Thanos fighting that it really felt like it got personal with him. And by the end of Quantumanium, just how much trouble Ant-Man, this one that he doesn't remember killing, just caused him. He just, any sense of being this all-powering conqueror who has the greater good for all the multiverse in mind and all of that. No, he's just a guy this guy has just pissed him off too much, and he just animalistic.
Do you think he's dead?
That version, I don't know. I think they've left it nebulous enough that they can bring it back, especially
when anyone really die inside the MCU these days?
Yeah, especially with the multiverse. They can bring back whoever they want. They can bring back Killmonger if they want, And with Darren Cross not being dead, having been reborn as a giant baby head, and MODOK, we should
talk about MODOK. This is possibly the worst thing the Marvel Cinematic Universe has ever done. Like,
it looked so bad. Why did it look like
terrible? Like, I mean, I understand the character of MODOK was always going to be hard to do because it looks kind of silly. But I understand in the comic books he's kind of a badass. Like,
yeah.
But there's a cartoon MODOK with Patton Oswalt voiced MODOK, but like that was played for laughs, and that's fine. But
yeah. This was not threatening. I'm sorry.
You're either going to play it for laughs or it's a threat. I don't think they could do both. And I think they were. And if it's going to do either of those things, and you're going to bring back Corey Stoll, don't fuck with him. Like, what did he do? Whose wife did he root to land such a shit role and look like garbs? Look so shithouse. It was terrible.
Do you remember there was in the early 90s there was a TV show, at least over in the UK, called Games Master?
I've seen some video of it in a few reviews. Like, I don't think it landed here, and I'm like, oh my god, that's it.
His face looks flat. Where did they forget to actually put definition and make the face 3D? It was just bad.
Take it up a step. What did you think of the CG in this film? I thought it was a bit iffy, personally.
Yeah, there was a lot that just was sort of like, okay. No. And why, if they're going weird, if they're going unusual, why don't you just go all in? And you've got buildings that are sentient and moving. It's like, cool, that's a cool thing. And we've got this creature that's just all blobs and is obsessed with the fact that it's like, oh, you have holes and that sort of stuff. It's like, all right, but why are most of the things that we're seeing still humanoid? Come on, just go. If you're gonna go weird, go weird.
Just in case you're like me and you are Australian or American or a Russian bot, you don't know what George is talking about, the Game Master. This is what we mean.
It's Kang. No, it's
How do
Komodo.
I get copyright strike again? It's Murdoch.
That's Murdoch.
You can find that on the YouTubes if you're like. It was really bad, and you kind of wonder about the creative decision, like when Kevin Feige and stuff saw what they'd done with it, and they've gone,
That'll do.
"Is that the final version?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Yeah, that's it. It's finished." And you're like, "The fuck?
Are you sure?" Because
when did we become Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Well,
it
kind of looked like someone just got assets from Minions and stretched someone else's face on it. They said, "Yeah, that'll do."
This is a very weak entry. I'm sorry for Marvel.
Yeah,
it doesn't bode well for. I think go back to your original point. Where Ant-Man played best was small-scale local stories, standalone stories. The first one was a heist film. We've talked about this. They did genre films with superheroes, the buddy cop film, the heist film. That really worked. They also left out Michael Pena in this film, who was one of the best. If you're going to have some comic relief, him doing his recap of what happened, that's funny. I really like that. The FBI detective, I forget his name. He was in one of these.
Yeah.
I think he's credited in this film, but I don't remember seeing him. So I don't know who he was. I noticed also David Dastmalchian's got a credit in this film.
He plays the thing with the ooze and Vec, I think it was.
He's actually in the first Ant-Man film.
Yeah.
Why can't I have his Randall Park's a guy I'm thinking he played Jimmy Woo.
Jimmy Woo.
I remember when maybe he played a wacky character or something as well. I don't. It was very, very disappointing film from Marvel. And look, it's when I say disappointing, it's relative. Endgame is one of the most transcendent cinematic experiences I've ever had. You and I were in the front row at the Hoyts in Greensboro like this. And it was fucking unbelievable, that film. So within 4 years, they're pumping out Vistros.
The thing you got to remember with stuff like that is comparing it to something like Endgame. It's they will never be able to reach the height of Endgame. Simple answer, because they had years of build up and Avengers Infinite War that was all set up for Endgame, which was all payoff. That was it. There was nothing to set up. It was just full payoff. That is sort of like, oh, yep, we've been fattening you up and fattening you up and fattening you up. And now you get to relieve yourself in whatever way you like for 2.5 hours. And you are going to love it because this is exactly what you've wanted.
Yeah, that's fair. But even if we compare it to most of the films from Phase 1 and 2,
there's your better reference.
It's not on a par with them. I mean, other than maybe even Thor: The Dark World, which has kind of always been thought of as, the low point of the MCU prior to Captain Marvel. It's still decent. It wasn't a horrible film. But I guess what I wanted to say was when we compare it to the other side, the DCEU, this would probably be a reasonably solid entry for the DCEU, something of this quality. It's just so middling. It's so dull.
Okay, here we go. Question. This or Black Adam?
This. Black Adam was boring.
Yeah. Agreed.
This has an advantage in fairness to Black Adam. We've seen Ant-Man now in 5 films. The 2 Ant-Man films, the 2 Avengers films, and Captain America Civil War.
Yeah.
I think it's 5 films. So It also has Paul Rudd, who's very likable and fun. But
Mm-hmm.
we've had a lot of time now with this character to really love him and go on adventures with him and enjoy his banter. And we know this character. So and they don't entirely shit the bed with that character. It's just the general package is just so dull that it makes it a pretty shitty Marvel film.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Black Adam felt like something that came out in the late 90s.
Yeah. Which is when it started production, so it makes sense. It was stuck in time. Now, shall we deviate?
One last thing, we got the spoilers thing still going. I did enjoy the post-credit scene with Loki. That did pique my interest for season 2, which is nice because I didn't particularly enjoy season 1.
True. Very fair. All right.
So we talk some more Jonathan Majors.
Yes. Let's talk about his war movie, Devotion. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Devotion. It's a sex movie. No, it's not really.
It's a strange title for a film about fighter pilots.
Yeah. And especially how the story is delivered. It's like, why
a pair of U.S. Navy fighter pilots risk their lives during the Korean War and become some of the Navy's most celebrated wingmen. I don't know that that's a great description either, because I don't think that's actually explained in the film. This is available in Australia on Netflix.
Yep.
Can't speak for overseas. I don't know if it's a Netflix movie or it's just where it's landed here.
I will look into that for you.
It is directed by J.D. Dillard, who I'm not particularly familiar with. He did direct an episode of The Outsider, with Ben Mendelsohn, the pilot episode, which I recall you and I both quite liking. He did an episode of A Twilight Zone, which is unfortunate because that was crap. He did an episode of Utopia, but I think it's one of his, if not his first feature, it's one of his very early features. He's up and coming. Written by Jay Crane, Jonathan Stewart, don't know who they are. It's based on a book by Adam Makos. In terms of stars, we have Jonathan Majors, of course, Kang himself. The other face in here you might know is Glenn Powell, who plays Tom Hudner. Apparently, he was in Top Gun Maverick, which I saw a few months ago, and I have zero memory of this guy being in that film. I have no idea who he was. The other name facing here you might know if you were a teenage girl at some point in your life is Mighty Good, played by one of the Jonas Brothers. Joe, to be exact.
Oh, okay.
I did not know that, but
neither did I.
I don't know much about Jonas Brothers, but I remember they were popular.
Yep.
We meet Jonathan Majors, who plays Jesse Brown. When Tom Hudner turns up to join his squadron of fighter pilots, we hear Jesse in the background, basically talking to what we learn later is himself saying, "You ain't shit, man. You ain't shit." And
essentially running lines of derogative, hateful things that people have said to him.
We find out later he remembers every hateful thing that people have said to him and repeats it back to himself, which is an interesting tactic. I don't think my therapist would endorse that, but I could try.
Yeah.
My brain does that by itself. I don't need to say it out loud. I'm perfectly good at that. Thank you. Didn't need no assistance. Tom is a very capable pilot already. Jesse is a somewhat controversial figure in the sense that he is the first, and I'm going to use the word Negro, because that's the one they use in the film.
Yes.
Actually, we say African American. It's the more polite term these days. African American aviator. Set in the early 50s. And he's sort of struggling, if you will. He's probably not up to the standard of everybody else in the crew, and maybe part of that's down to his anxiety that he has to perform to a much higher level because he is African American.
Yeah.
We meet his wife, played by Christina Jackson Daisy. They have a wonderful. That's when he really comes out of his shell, and they have a really beautiful relationship, the two of them, with their daughter. A very loving husband. it's interesting you see the yin and the yang of this character in the sense when he's at work though, when he's working with Tom at the base, he's almost standoffish with his colleagues, with his I don't know what they call people in the Air Force. Is no, not all wingmen, are they? But his comrades, his crew, y'all. He's standoffish with him. He almost keeps him at arm's length, and Tom is his wingman, and it takes Tom quite a while to earn Jesse's trust enough to be able to allow inside his sort of walls and be invited back to his home and meet his wife.
Yeah.
We then follow them as the Korean War is beginning. They learn to land their planes on a carrier, and then the story follows on to Korea itself, where the fit really hits the fan.
Yes.
You thought I wouldn't like this film. Why was that?
Because I think that it does a really bad job of actually telling the actual story that it wants to tell, and I think it's a tale of two movies where it's trying to be, there's elements of it where it very much tries to be sort of like, this is what Top Gun was like, but back during this time, and see how hard it was and how it's, the danger is still real and blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, it's kind of like, you're not actually, the interesting element of this is Jesse Brown, and you keep forgetting about that. I'm seeing this really good layered performance from Jonathan Majors here. You keep forgetting it. Just show me that. And it's a very frustrating movie on that regard.
We should note Jesse Brown was a real person. This is based on a true story. And Jesse Brown was the first African-American aviator for the U.S. Navy and had a ship named after him in the 70s. I'm with you there that when this film is on the ground, it's not very interesting. It does a bad job of playing out or building the cast of characters. The fellow aviators in his squadron is the word I was looking for. The one Joe Jonas, like I mentioned earlier, is one of them. And can you remember who any of those people were, or do they look completely interchangeable and disposable?
I do not remember any of them. I remember that one of them, one of the army men, was like the token obligatory overly racist guy that was just felt painfully generic, and was there just as a tool to bring the two leads, Tom and Jesse, bond together more. Everyone else is just set dressing.
I think you're right, and they spend too much time with them, right? Either you tell me who they are, and they play an important role in the story, and they become really fully fledged, fleshed out characters, or just focus on the interesting people.
Yeah,
and in this case, I think they should have focused on the interesting people.
Yeah,
I don't think Glenn Powell is a terribly good actor. It's almost like they signed up Jonathan Majors, and like I said, he's going to be a movie star. He's going to be in Kang and a bunch of different films, so he's going to be a massive star.
Yeah,
and it's almost like they knew they had him on their hands at that point, and they're like, cool, we can go with a generic white guy. And he was in Top Gun. I think a better actor could have done a lot more with this role. It's very rude of me to talk about Glenn Powell like that, but he's generic white guy all the way. Deeply unmemorable.
Yeah, it's fine. He does what he needs to do, but he's also kind of sharing screen time with someone who is given raw emotion to play with and given depth and integrity and intensity, and Tom is not given any of that.
We don't get any of it. We don't meet his family. We don't meet his wife. We don't see him at home. And I think Jonathan Majors is on a rip right now. He's going to be in Creed 3, which I'm sure will be a massive smash hit. And maybe I should
Trailer
see
looks
both
great.
Creed films first. I don't know. So where this film does excel is, and I think when they're in the sky, when they're flying, and in the combat scenes. For the dogfight scenes, they hired Kevin LaRosse II, whoever
Yes.
saw and designed the fight scenes, the Top Gun Maverick, according to the trivia here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And those who are regular listeners, I saw Top Gun a few months ago and was surprised at how much I liked it. Like, it was actually an entertaining film. And I think it was kind of the same thing there, in the sense that when Tom Cruise is doing the dogfighty stuff, it's actually pretty entertaining. And they pulled it off pretty well. But I mean, the stuff on the ground with Top Gun is just don't pretend there's a story. Yeah, I don't care.
They play volleyball.
But at least in fairness to the first of those films, which I don't think we liked, but they had memorable characters. Iceman and Goose and stuff like that. But they don't even pull that off here. But my goodness, the aerial dogfight scenes are sensational.
Mm-hmm.
And
they look great. They feel
many of them, really. They really should have done more of that. Maybe, I guess they didn't have budget for it, but...
Well, I mean, considering the literal time period that they were telling their story about, right on the cusp of that sort of like genuine conflict with in the Korean War, it's like, okay, we can't make up a dogfight just to add one in there. I kind of feel like maybe they should have moved the story a little bit further along, but because it's based on a real person, it's like, okay, that sets what kind of movie this is going to be. And so I think they had their hands somewhat tied for that element. But yeah, it was really nice to also see these old school planes. I loved airplanes when I was a kid. I wanted to be a pilot before I was told, no, you're colorblind, you can't fly.
It's a problem.
Yeah, it's a little problem. It was so nice to see those rather than these high-tech, like, ooh, look at this, it's like F-19, whatever.
I think it's almost the strength of the film is the fact that the ones that are super high-tech in Top Gun was okay. I mean, it's almost like, the thing about Top Gun also is that they never talk about who the enemy is. They're just the enemy. And
we don't want to insult any foreign governments.
Yeah, like... I don't know that there are a whole lot of countries, maybe other than China, who could go head-to-head with American hardware in the sky these days. If you're an aviation geek, please come at us and tell me I'm wrong. But
please, no one can beat the British in the skies.
But in this film, we're a little bit more head-to-head with the Soviets, right? And the fact that they actually go, no, these are, well, I don't think they're Chinese, they're probably Chinese jets, but they're Chinese aviators flying Russian jets. It feels a little bit more real, a little bit more down to earth, and a little bit more visceral than the super high techy ones in the new films. And I think the third act of this film is very strong. I actually found myself kind of bored during the first 2/3 of the film. Not horribly bored. It was okay. Are you going to get to the point soon and tell me what this film's fucking about? Because he sort of meanders along for an hour or so before it decides, oh, by the way, did I tell you the film's about the Korean War and this is happening?
Speaking on time, this is 2 hours, 19 minutes. That is far too long.
Much too long. It doesn't have enough story to fill that much time.
No, it could have been a really sweet little hour 30.
Hour 30, hour 40, in and out, and tell me your story. Because if that's literally, I don't know the full Jesse Brown story. There was more to it. I would have been interested to hear it. But the last act,
even the little bit where he finally opens up and talks a little bit about what it was like training, and just how brutal he depicts his training. I love the fact that we didn't necessarily see that, and we were just told it in a wonderful moment by Jonathan Majors. But at the same time, it's like, you could have shown me that and then cut to this, and that would have been a really visceral, open sequence of life for an African American trying to trying to get to this level of being the first pilot. Holy crap,
think,
that's a story.
Think Hidden Figures, but about pilots.
Yes.
It's almost the Glenn Powell character is almost a distraction.
Yeah.
Because early on in the film, I think all the way through the film, he's almost an protagonist with Jonathan Majors, which I don't know that he should have been. It's not his story.
No.
But the final sequence, the final act is really exciting, really entertaining. It goes from dogfight to what happens next, and I won't spoil it for people who want to watch it on Netflix.
Yeah.
But I was found myself surprised by the ending in the way it ended. And I'm assuming that's the way it happened in real life. So again, it kind of had their hands about what they could do with it. But at the same time, I was like, that's a pretty cool way of ending the story, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty sad, but pretty realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad that I watched it, primarily because of Jonathan Majors' performance. I think it's another example of him being right on that cusp that we see. Quite a lot of actors seem to have that sleeper hit of something right around the same time that they got signed in a big movie that shows them into the limelight, and then they're off to the races. I think we are going to see some really exciting stuff from him going forwards. He has been solid and just honing his craft. He has got the guts to really show pain and emotional depth and empathy in all of the roles that I've seen him in so far. And it's like, yes, give him to me. I want him. Come on.
This is the film that really nailed it for me. I liked him in Ant-Man, which I saw last Wednesday or Thursday night. I can't remember. But then I watched this on the weekend. I'm like, this guy has real presence on the screen. The camera likes him. He can seriously go when the acting needs to come along, and he's not just shooting lasers out of his arm like in the Marvel film. The guy's got serious range.
Yes,
this is a film that maybe this, like I said earlier, he is a flat out movie star.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there are many of them these days.
Not at the moment. There's a lot of people just cruising.
Yeah. But thank you for suggesting it. I would say it's long, but it's not bad. If you like Top Gun, you might like this too. Actually, it's not as flashy as Top Gun.
Yeah.
But again, the air combat sequences are worth the price of admission.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree. Now, should we do a quick whip snap of Binge, Browse, Burn?
Yes, let's.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with a browse for the new season of Carnival Row on Amazon Prime. It has been
the Orlando Bloom show.
Yes, and Cara Delevingne in a steampunk-like Victorian era style city where the Fae are part and parcel of society, and this has come from there's been quite a delay between season 1 and season 2. The first season was 2019.
Well, the pandemic fucked with a lot of people, right?
Yes, it did mess up a lot, but it's really to its detriment because it's a really interesting, compelling premise that muddled a little bit. It meanders through the first season, but because it's been so long, they had a previously on Carnival Row, but it's like, no, I don't remember any of it. So it's the production value is still solid. Orlando Bloom and Cara, they definitely have got a much stronger understanding and better material this time around for their roles. The world has, at the end of season 1, things changed and forced a cultural shift within the world of Carnival Row to make it really interesting and compelling beyond that initial idea of Fae people are part of what we know too, which is inherently quite a cool concept. They didn't really do too much with it, but now they are. I recommend anyone going in and browsing this, if you like the first season, stick with it is my recommendation, because it does have an interesting kind of conceit behind it, as well as it's got some little bit of the political kind of thing that people have seemed to have really engaged with since kind of the popularity of Game of Thrones and House of Targaryen, House of the Dragon, and that sort of stuff. It's got a little bit of that. It's a little bit for everyone, and they seem to be doing quite nicely for this new season, which is the finale season. 2 episodes up right now. It's a good possibility. It's a browse.
How are you watching it again?
Prime Video. Yes.
So I'm going to go with a soft browse at this point in time. I have just started on a journey.
Okay.
And that journey is a show called Happy Valley. I'm not sure if you have heard of it.
Happy Valley.
This is from your homeland.
Yeah.
But it comes very highly rated by people like The Guardian. It has won a lot of BAFTAs. It is top rated 226 in IMDb's top 250 TV shows.
Wow.
It has an 8.5 in IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always kind of looked at it and gone, yeah, nah, British cop show, don't think so. Yorkshire-based crime drama centered around the personal and professional life of Police Sergeant Catherine K. Wood. And what an interesting show this is in the sense that it has run between 2014 and 2023. Yet there are 3, I think maybe 4 seasons of this.
Okay.
You're like, 4 seasons in 9 years? What the fuck is happening in your home country?
Look. This is the place that has made that very, very popular with Sherlock and a couple of others. It's like, you know what? No, we're gonna do shorter seasons. Maybe we might flirt with the idea of longer episodes, but we're gonna make you wait a year and a half between, because a year and a half, yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. Oh, next time we're gonna do it for 17 days. Yeah.
To be clear, there are 3 seasons. 3 seasons over 9 years and 18 episodes. What the actual fuck? How does that work? I don't get it.
But this is how we make it compelling.
I don't understand that. Like, apparently it's utterly brilliant. One of the most lauded TV shows you'll hear about. At least that's what I'm hearing around the place. But we've created 18 episodes over 9 years. Like, anyway, I watched. I started with this because people have been crapping on. I think they might have concluded it now. I'm not sure. I've been reading a lot about the new season recently, and I thought I'd give it a go because it's available on Binge here in Australia.
Okay,
and it's all right. It's different to something like thinking of there are a lot of British police shows. The last one, the big one I remember is The Bill. Did you ever watch The Bill?
That was a different beast to what I think this seems to be.
I was going to say it definitely is, in the sense The Bill was almost
have you ever
watched any for the UK?
Have you ever watched any Luther?
No.
It's probably more akin to Luther, which is one of the things that got Idris Elba really pushed into the limelight. That has been going from 2010 to 2019. There's a movie coming out. So I think that might be a better simile, that kind of gritty.
I wasn't comparing this to The Bill. I was just trying to give people, who might have watched the British British cop shows. If you're thinking it's The Bill, that's not it. It's not like a different story every week. There seem to be overarching story arcs. We are meeting the same sort of cast of characters, though, so that's one thing. I'm finding the first episode hard work, in the sense that it sort of flirts between its main character. Seems to be the least interesting one, which is Catherine K. Wood, played by Sarah Lancashire. There are some subplots running through the first episode. You're like, oh, this is juicy. I like this. Whereas her main plot being about her sister, I think, the rapist, the murderer of a rapist of her sister, who went on to kill herself. Sorry, daughter, not sister. Is just being released from jail, and I assume that's going to form the main arc for the season. But there are some other sort of characters in here who are doing some other shady shit, which seem more interesting to me. But if it weren't for the other interesting side characters that would go in the burn pile, it's the side characters writing the side stories alongside of Christine's story, which are keeping me engaged. Whenever Christine pops back up, I'm like, yeah, what's going on Reddit? So why I'm giving it a soft browse, I'll hang in there and see how far down the rabbit hole I can go with this. The fact it's 18 episodes, despite being super weird, is an attractive prospect that I don't have to watch 9 seasons of stuff,
All right. Anything else? Because at the moment I've got nothing else to really talk about.
The only other one I'll talk about, this is a return to one of it's probably the big story at the moment. That is The Last of Us, because I think I talked about.
Yes, I have. I have signed up and I have watched everything except the most recent episode.
Well, I'll start, and I'm going to keep this in the binge category. So, turned out last night I was 2 episodes behind, so I watched episode 5 and episode 6. I think the last time we spoke might have been after episode 2 or 3. I can't remember which exactly one it was. I just like to keep people, if you're going, the first couple of episodes, like sometimes I think of Lovecraft Country. The first episode was amazing, and then it just went. Woo. The Last of Us has not let up much at all. It started strong. It absolutely scaled the heights of television that you will rarely ever see in the episode with Nick Offerman in it. Which just checking now is episode. I'm not sure which episode. 1 or 2 or 3 anyway. 3, long time. But episode 5, Endure and Survive, and episode 6, Kin, are both excellent. Episode 5 is probably the second best episode of the season so far for me. There is a little bit more zombie action. If you're one of those people who's complaining there's too much talking and not enough zombie, haven't played the game, but I think that's the point of the game. There's a lot of talking. It's all about the story. Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey have an incredible chemistry on screen together. They're doing an amazing job. Don't listen to anybody who's giving you shit. Oh, it's not like the game. I changed things. Fuck right up with that.
It's a different medium. You cannot just tell the same story, no matter what I've said in the past.
Enjoy the game. Go back and enjoy the fucking game. It's still there for you to enjoy if you want to play it out exactly the same way. But this is the one we've been waiting for. I think it's rating. I feel like it's the one that people are talking about. I suspect it's doing well in terms of viewership. I don't know. It's HBO Max. Who knows?
Well, apparently it's outstripping their top shows, which I think was somehow House of the Dragon.
Well, I mean, I haven't watched it. I don't know. People liked Game of Thrones a lot. So, but I think this is the one. This is the one that tells you if you treat a video game with the kind of respect that you would any other text, and you give it some time and some love, and and don't go, well, everybody loved that amazing story that the video game told, but what if we just went in and told a completely different story of the same characters?
What if we made Joel 21?
And a Navy SEAL or something, and set it in Iraq, it's just like if you actually treat it properly, it will make. If there's an amazing story in a game, it's still an amazing story. You need to fiddle the parts a little bit, but
I do have a gripe with it.
Yes,
I wish they'd dumped the whole season in one hit. I hate having to wait. This is a slow burn story, and it's wonderful for that. But making us wait a full week before we can get more is torturous, man.
Look, I think Netflix is still the only people who do the dump season in one go. I don't have a problem. I mean, HBO is still sort of technically a TV station, I think, in the US. I think so. Look, I mean, I'm conflicted. On the one hand, if you could burn it in a weekend, so be it. But at the same time, I am Gen X. You're Gen X, right? You might be early millennial, actually. But like back when we were young, you had to wait until next week for the next episode, right? So I feel for younger folks who might have grown up with the Netflix model. But if that's the worst thing you have to say about it, then I think it's doing pretty well. Would you put it in the binge category?
I put it in the binge category. Absolutely, yes. I am a millennial, my friend.
I'm right on the cusp. Some people say 77. The year I was born is millennial. Some say Gen X. But I say, if you can remember when they came up with the name Gen X, you are a Gen X. And I remember that. So, yeah, I am late X.
Yes. I'm part of the generation that grew up before internet.
Ooh, you're not quite a digital native. But I'm so glad this is good. This just means we'll get more great video game stories turned into movies. I'm fascinated to see what they do with Fallout. I know I keep saying it, but I keep seeing pictures online with it.
Yeah.
It's Mario. We saw another trailer recently. It's going to make all the fucking money. It's going to destroy the box office. And all of a sudden, 10 years later, I am going to be right.
Another 10 years later, and you'll be right.
I think it was coming out this year, right?
Yeah.
So you got The Last of Us.
We have been tooting this horn for nearly 10 years.
I've had this. It's been almost 10 years. 2014, 2015, whenever we started. I can't remember. If you would like to see what the early days of a podcast look like, I did post a photo of us on the podcast, the Fried Brain Productions Facebook page of us from 12 years ago. So if you aren't already following us on that Facebook page, it's well worth signing up to see that one.
Handsome devils. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to bring episode 173 to a close. We ran a little longer than the hour and a half that we were hoping, but still less than 1 hour.
We're trying, people.
But don't forget you can reach out to us, and please do, at EvilTrav, at The Fried Brain on Twitter, Facebook.com/Armchair Producers, YouTube.com/Armchair Producers, Twitch.tv/The Fried Brain. We'd love to hear from you if you've got a recommendation for a movie. Next week, forgot. It was my turn to pick a new chain movie, and I didn't announce it.
How did we forget this?
How did we forget the crux of the show? We are going to be following Carey Mulligan to one of the rare Mark Romanek movies. We're going to go to Never Let Me Go.
I have seen this. This is a sad movie.
Yeah, this came out, I think, 2010, and I don't think I've seen it since. And I am very curious to go back to it.
Good choice. Good choice. Plenty of extras from this one. Written by Colin Garland. Garland, the guy who wrote Sunshine and The Beach, and Alex Garland. And directed by Mark Romanek, who is an interesting director as well.
Yeah. So we've got that for next week. We talked about Promising Young Woman. We talked about Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumanium, and Devotion. It was the Jonathan Majors double bill. Next week, we have got Never Let Me Go. And we'll have another 2 movies and binge, browse, and burn as always. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Good night.